here. J.R. Shepard dives down to the inside, trying to see if he's able to get a little bit of that tack that Brandon Proudfoot has been getting up at the front of the field. 10 laps to go here at Port Royal.
Yeah, definitely not making a huge ground here on Brian. Brian's able to maintain that gap.
It's Justin Morton back into second with J.R. Shepard somehow taking over the lead. I have no idea.
These guys, you see Scott kind of using up all that momentum. Got to enter the corner wide. I expect him to kind of cut back low. See lap car down on the inside. George overshoots the corner. Scott puts that car just where he needs to on the middle. It's going to be a drag race through the kink. Thomas George gets loose. Scott Eckridge has the opportunity to come home with a win right now. Side-by-side drag race.
Oh, wow.
Scott Eckridge, 5 1,000ths of a second. The Virtual Group Network and the Bootleg Racing League welcomes you to the Dirt Super Late Model Series presented by Whiteriver LLC. Austin Belkey and Chris Davis with you in the booth tonight. We've got our director Ryan Seneker in the production trailer. You can see some of the weather information about tonight's races. 79 degrees Fahrenheit, 76% humidity. Chris, it's a humid one out here. Clear skies. We're here at I-55, also known as Federated Auto Parts. And Chris, we just got done seeing you take home a podium finish in the Dirt Street Stock Series. What can you tell us about this track and what these drivers can expect to see in this next race?
Well, here's what I can tell you. A lot of time we don't talk about the weather, but the humidity here will be helpful in that it will help keep the moisture up in the track here tonight. And one of the things that we found out in the Dirt Street Stocks was that even though the track slicked out in the middle, in the Dirt Street Stocks, you could ride right through the middle as long as you weren't spinning the rear tire. The same thing could be true here in these super late models. They have a whole lot more horsepower. Being on the tacky part of the track tends to be more important, so you might see people running the bottom and the top and leaving the middle alone when it slicks out. However, those who know how to control their right foot and the so-called loud pedal and can keep the volume below 11 might be able to roll the middle and do something with it. So we could see 3 lines here tonight, Austin. I think we're in for a good show.
Yeah, I'm really excited myself, Chris. If the Dirt Street Stock race is anything to go on, I think these guys are going to have a lot of fun. I think we're going to have a lot of fun watching them. Let's take a quick look at the championship standings here before we end the practice session and go on into qualifying. It is a complete tie up at the top of the point. Jason Dill and Thomas Vickers, both those drivers tied at 530 points apiece. How about William Hargraves there in the 3rd position? You've got guys like Aiden Young, the Gambler Motorsports driver, and Steven Spees there. Again, John Wilson as well in the top 10, one of your drivers, Chris. So very interesting to see who's going to come out of this race tonight with the stronghold on the points championship.
Without a doubt. And, you know, Hargraves might have been able to put a chokehold on this field and come down with a big MMA win, but he's not here tonight. So that means Dill and Vickers are here, and they're going to battle out for how this championship is going to finish. So I think it's going to be some exciting racing. You know, Spees joined here late. He's known to be super fast in these late models, as is Proudfoot. Brandon doesn't get here every single Friday night. But one of the things to know about Brandon Proudfoot is he is a former professional at the top level of iRacing in these cars, although in an open setup, and he'll be the first to tell you that being able to modify your setup is very different from racing these fixed setups that we have here tonight.
Certainly. Now the drivers are out on track doing their qualifying runs, and Chris, as has been the case for the last season or two here in the Bootleg Racing League competition, drivers have 4 laps to put down as fast a laps as they can. They need to make sure, though, that they're clean. One single tap of the outside wall gets you even a 0x. That could invalidate all 4 of your lap times. You folks at home are probably seeing a lot of colorful rectangles at the bottom of your screen. Each driver has 2 of them, Sector 1 and Sector 2. Sector 1 turns 1 and 2, Sector 2 turns 3 and 4. A purple sector, purple rectangle, means the fastest time any driver has gone through that half of the track. Green is a driver's personal best. Yellow somewhere below both of those, and a blue bar means in progress. So far, Brandon Proudfoot leads the top of the timing sheets here in qualifying. He's got John Wilson in second, then Aiden Young in third, Jason Mend, and Joe Segala right now bringing up the rear in fifth.
And Austin, you do the best at explaining those rectangles at the bottom. And one of the challenges of these cars is that the way they like to drive is to throw that right rear out. So when you go down the straightaway, it's very easy to brush the outside wall, which in normal circumstances would be no big deal, except that in qualifying, if you touch the outside wall, your laps don't count.
Yeah, Chris, I'm so glad you touched on that, too, that these cars like to be thrown around. So down the straightaways, the cars, it's kind of a weird floatiness, but it's like controlled floatiness where it's not like a foot or two. It's maybe an inch or two in each direction. But yeah, if you're right up close next to that wall, it's super easy to just brush it ever so slightly. You see Thomas Vickers and Jason Dill out on track. How about that purple sector there out of Thomas Vickers?
Yeah, Thomas Vickers, let's see what he's going to be able to do. He might jump up to the top of the charts. Right now it's Brandon Proudfoot and my teammate John Wilson in second. Pretty proud of him to out-qualify Aiden Young and Steven Spees so far.
Yeah, lots of fast drivers there, especially out of that Gambler Motorsports camp. So John Wilson being up there. No surprise, we know he's fast, but to outdo the other 2 Gambler drivers, really a true and certain feat for him. Thomas Vickers and Brandon Proudfoot were 2 of the fastest drivers, the 2 fastest in the practice session. But as the Professor John Hine always calls those, the ego sheets, it's really all dependent how soon you get into practice, how fresh the track is for those drivers to put down some fast laps. Jason Dill slots himself into the 9th position. Looks like Thomas Vickers is still completing his laps. Oh, so it looks like Thomas Vickers completed. He must have gotten some sort of a 0x, though, Chris, as his lap times are basically invalidated.
Well, that is so painful. I've had it happen to me more than once where you feel like you're the fastest guy on the track, but you just so barely brush the wall. Your single lap doesn't count. That invalidates all 4 of them, and you start at the back of the field.
So the last driver here that hasn't yet qualified is Rory Collins. He has yet to put down a single lap. I feel like because he hasn't completed a lap yet, he's probably just going to ride out the rest of this qualifying session because he'd have to get done all 4 of his flying laps to even put down a quote-unquote time, as it were. So as it stands, for right now, your pole sitter, Brandon Proudfoot, in there with an average lap time, or fastest lap time, I should say, of 11.938. John Wilson's going to be in the 2nd position overall, and then the 2 Gambler Motorsports drivers are going to qualify 3rd and 4th respectively, Aiden Young and Steven Spees. And you've got Jason Dill in the 5th position, Jason Menda, 2 Jasons back-to-back. They're 5th and 6th. Menda in 6th position, Michael Smith in 7th, and then Joe Segala, the slowest of your qualifiers, as it were. Thomas Vickers went out there, attempted a qualifying lap. Unfortunately, though, for him, he got an X, so an incident point, we'll call that in iRacing. He invalidated his lap time, so he'll be starting tail end Charlie along with Rory Collins. And, of course, you see Chris Davis on the left side. He's up here with us in the booth, so he won't be qualifying. But, Chris, it looks like the qualifying time is almost over, so we get to find out who's grouped up with who in these heat races.
Yeah, that's going to put yourself Brandon Proudfoot in Heat 1, John Wilson in Heat 2. I'll let you call the lineup here for Heat number 1.
Thank you, Chris. Brandon Proudfoot's going to line up on pole. He's going to have Aiden Young to his outside. Jason Dill and Michael Smith are going to line up in row number 2. And rounding out the field in row number 3, you've got Thomas Vickers on the inside and Rory Collins on the outside. Chris, if you're Brandon Proudfoot and the Dirt Street Stock Race is anything to go, I'm going to assume he wants the bottom, but is that what you would choose if you were him? You think he's going to choose it?
At this point in the night, I am starting out on the bottom for a couple of reasons. Not only do I get to announce when to step on the loud pedal, but starting on the bottom here at I-55, I think generally is to your advantage. Other tracks, I'd be on the outside, but it's early in the night. The tacky part is down low, and I'll have a whole lot of control going into turn 1 on the bottom. That's where I would start for this heat race.
Well, Chris, even though I agree with you, it looks like Brandon Proudfoot doesn't agree with us. It looks like he's going to elect to start on the top side, so that moves him up to the high side. Aiden Young is going to be forced to start on the bottom, and everybody else throughout the rest of the field, odd-numbered positions on the bottom, even-numbered positions up top. So that's how it's going to be. Proudfoot has chosen the outside. He's letting the iRacing pace truck get a pretty decent lead here. You're going to start to see that iRacing pace truck make the hard left turn down pit road into the infield. There he goes, and almost immediately, just Proudfoot put his foot on the loud pedal. He's got Aiden Young just tucked in behind there. Look at that slide, though, out of Thomas Vickers on the bottom, immediately making up those places.
Yes, and behind them in 3rd, 4th, and 5th, we saw a whole lot of contact. No cautions here in the heat races, so it doesn't matter. That allows Proudfoot to get a big jump on Aiden Young. He's going to control this for quite a while. I think at this point we're going to settle in and just watch Proudfoot and Aiden Young figure out where they want to run later in tonight.
Big thank you to our cameraman and director there, Ryan Seneger, for bringing us a replay to see what the cause of the commotion was there with Rory Collins and Michael Smith there in the 73 car, so you can see why both those drivers are so far behind the 8-ball here. A big collision going into turn 1 on the opening lap of this race. Brandon Proudfoot's going to come across the start-finish line to start lap 5. He's got Aiden Young tucked in behind. Those two drivers right now are going to be the first two to automatically punch their ticket into the final event for tonight. Whoa, almost contact there between Rory Collins and Brandon Proudfoot. And both those cars able to keep it off each other. White flag in the air. Proudfoot is going to come through turns 3 and 4. He's going to grab the checkered flag. You see Thomas Vickers almost sent it up the inside on Aiden Young. Not quite close enough to get it. So Proudfoot and Aiden Young automatically going to advance into the 30-lap feature here later tonight. Thomas Vickers is going to finish in the 3rd position, followed by Jason Dillon 4th, Rory Collins in 5th, and Michael Smith is going to finish tail end Charlie in the 6th position, which brings us to the starting lineup for heat number 2. Go ahead and get that graphic on your screen in just a second here. John Wilson, the Team CDR driver, is going to start on the pole. Steven Spies is going to roll off to his outside in 2nd. Jason Menda and Joseph Segala are going to line up in the 2nd row. So, Chris, given what you saw Brandon Proudfoot choose in that last heat, if you're John Wilson, are you going to start on the top or stick down to the inside?
Well, if you're John Wilson and you watch Proudfoot go to the outside, you go to the outside because Proudfoot is a pro. But here's what I'll tell you. Team CDR, John Wilson is my teammate. I just got to give a shout out to the fact that he out-qualified Steven Spies, who's known to be an expert in these cars. So nice job for John. Whether he starts on the bottom or the outside, I'm proud of him. I would, at this point, seeing what I just saw in the last heat race, I would go up top.
All right, I like it. Chris, why don't you see if you can't grid up and then hit the tow button maybe to get yourself out of the session, and then see if we can't automatically advance it. Otherwise, no harm, no foul. All right, iRacing pace truck off and away. Okay, good way to call it there, Director Ryan. So, we'll see if John takes the inside here, Chris, or chooses to go up to the top and forces Steven Spies there down to the bottom.
Looks like he's going to stay on the bottom, which is fine if you know what to do to get on these cars. These cars do not like to go straight, so whatever you can do to feel comfortable is what I think you want to do in these vehicles.
Yeah, and honestly, comfort can't be overstated for a race car driver to feel, to feel confident in what they're doing and really just perform at their best. You get the guy the most comfortable in the car, that's where he's going to perform his best. So John Wilson elects to start on the bottom here on the inside of Steven Spies. iRacing pace truck makes a hard left turn down pit road. John Wilson almost already on the loud pedal. He's going to come up the track to block the momentum there of Steven Spies. Looks like maybe a little bit of contact made there between those two cars. Spies wisely lets up off the accelerator to allow John Wilson to gather it back up, and he continues to chase.
Yeah, John did a good job. He ran down to the bottom. Spees gave him a little bit of a nudge, but John said, you know what, that's fine. I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. You do what you're doing, and I'm going to take the lead.
Yeah, John Wilson continues to, he starts high in 1 and 2 and then cuts down low, and then in 3 and 4, he's been diamonding the corners a lot more than the rest of his competition. Steven Spees especially, that's been causing a lot of trouble for Steven. I think right now he's got a little bit better of a race pace, but John's doing everything he can. He's doing a real perfect job to make sure Steven doesn't have an easy opportunity to pass him.
No, and Spees definitely knows how to drive this track. He was stalking him from lap 1. They are going side by side. Spees showing a whole lot of respect down on the bottom, allowing John to run the outside, and John still up front. Spees applying pressure, but dropping back in behind, and he's going to go up to the top at this point.
Yeah, checkered flag in the air there for John Wilson. He's going to snag the win here in heat number 2. And how about just how clean and respectful Steven Spees drove him? I can't say I'm surprised. Really not at all. Steven's just that kind of guy. Super respectful racer. Honestly, I don't feel like Steven has ruffled a feather in his life. He's just a super clean guy, very respectable. And that race between those two cars was probably the best race for the lead I've seen tonight. Might be the best we're going to see all night. And if that's the case, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That was a perfect job by both those guys to go in there side by side. But Chris, it looks like we have time now to go through the lineup for our last chance qualifier. The B main, Thomas Vickers is going to start on pole. Jason Mendez is going to roll off in second. Jason Dill and Joe Segala round out the second row. You've got Rory Collins rolling off in fifth, and then Michael Smith supposed to roll off in seventh. He'll probably go up there to take that sixth spot here in a second.
Yeah, that's true. And wow, that felt like 4 laps, not 8. I don't know about you, Austin. That went by really quick.
Yeah, it certainly did. Yeah, those 6 laps absolutely flew by in that second heat race. I was shocked that you were calling it. I looked down at the bottom to see what lap we were on, and it said we were taking the checkered flag. It absolutely just flew by there. So instead of 6 races for the heats, these last chance qualifiers have 8 laps, so an additional 2 laps. And in this case scenario, sometimes you have guys trying to make the show. Thankfully for all these guys tonight, that extra 2 laps doesn't quite matter because everybody's automatically locked in. So we are going to see all these drivers competing in the 30-lap feature event here in just a couple minutes.
Yeah, these couple minutes here are very valuable. When I was in the warm-up for the Dirt Street Stocks, what I was trying to do was figure out what was the top going to be like, what was it going to be like when I had to battle someone down on the bottom. It wasn't about trying to get the fastest time out there. It was more like, what is the race going to feel like when we have to go side by side? And I think you'll see a whole lot of that here later after we get past this LCQ.
Certainly. So Thomas Vickers, starting on the pole, has elected to start on the bottom. iRacing pace truck makes a hard left turn down pit road. Thomas Vickers waited a little bit longer than some of his other starters to start this race. He gets an absolute flying start. Oh, a little bit of netcode contact there between Jason Dill and the 45 of Jason Menda. Dill saw that and decides to back out of the throttle, allow the driver of the 45 to gather that thing back up underneath him. Thomas Vickers, though, out to about a 7/10 of a second lead over the rest of the field.
Yeah, and at this point, everybody's starting to go up top. That's going to be very interesting because when you burn out the top at this particular track, the bottom can come in out of nowhere. So it's going to be very interesting how much they burn this track up here in the LCQ because in this particular league, Austin, we do not reset the track at all. There is no water truck. So whatever they do here in these next few laps is what's going to reset the track before the warm-up and then the main event.
Yeah, you can still see this two-eye battle on your screen. This is for the second position. You've got Jason Menda in the 45 car on the top side, Jason Dill in the 09 car on the bottom. They finally get single file after a good couple laps. You're going to come across the stripe here to get the bunny ears from Barney the Flagman. 2 laps to go. Jason Dill continues to apply pressure there on the bottom.
Yes, and at this point, everybody's running the top. That's going to be very interesting as we get ready for the warm-up and the main event. I'm not so sure that the top line is going to be the place to be for the whole night.
I don't think so. You see Jason Dill cut down to the inside of Jason Menda. He's going to snatch that second spot away in turns 1 and 2. Checkered flag in the air for our winner, Thomas Vickers. Second place goes to Jason Dill. Jason Menda forced to reconcile himself back into the third position. Michael Smith in fourth. Rory Collins fifth. Joe Segala rounds out your 6-car field in the sixth position. And with that, we can bring ourselves into this 5-minute warm-up here, Chris. And I have to imagine a lot of guys are going to be rim riding here to try and force this top line to come in right around there, maybe build up some of that cushion.
Well, it's so funny what you said. You said rim ride to make it come in. Sometimes I've been known to try and rim ride and get people to follow me up there to wear it out, because what I really want to do is run the bottom later in the night. So I'm not so sure. We don't have a whole lot of cars here tonight, so running up against top, looking at this track, I think the outside line is going to be able to hold its own for quite a while, but this track can throw a whole lot of randomness into the night. So we might see the middle start to actually work later, maybe 10 or 15 laps in.
Oh, that's really interesting too, John, that you mentioned that. You say, I want to run the top to make it come in, but mostly to make sure it's burned off by that later part of the race so that I can start to do what I like most and run down at the bottom. I like that. It's a really sly strategy. I'd be really interested to see how many drivers kind of run the top with you, and then at the end of the race they go, dang it, I wish I wouldn't have drove the top so much in that warm-up session. Maybe he could still be with me here for the rest of this race. Steven Spies, one of those guys, calls himself a bottom feeder. He's up there in that top side. Is he getting used to it, or is he maybe doing the same thing you'd want to do, Chris? Try and burn up that top side so the bottom comes in.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Every single lap you run at the top makes the top worse than it could have been. And so if you're someone who wants to run the bottom, as long as people are leaving the bottom alone, that means that the bottom could come in later in the night. We don't have a lot of cars here, so it's not always going to be the case. If you've got 20 or more cars and everyone's running the top in the warm-up, that can make the bottom very attractive later on.
Completely agree there, Chris. The second question I have, you mentioned in your interview for the Dirt Street Stock series that you found it a lot easier. You, in fact, heard John, the Professor Hine, in your ear telling you to just roll that middle and really take care of the throttle. Do you see a big opportunity for these guys to take advantage of the middle in this race tonight? I see a couple guys out there kind of flirting with that middle line just a little bit.
This track is different, Austin. You actually can, even in these super late models, roll the middle so long as you control the throttle. And that's the hardest part, which is to go down into the middle of the track, even though you know it's slick, and just not squeeze the throttle. And it's so hard to do because you feel like you could get out of the car and walk faster than the car is going. But the reality is, you could easily be faster than the guy on the outside who's smashing the loud pedal and taking it to 11.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. Sometimes it does feel like you could get out there and practically walk faster because these cars, it's so hard to put the power down coming out of these corners. They have so much power, so little grip, and the fact if you're on the bottom too, you have that wheel cranked, it's especially hard to put the power down and come off these corners with any sort of momentum or speed compared to somebody, especially on the top side. And that's where you can really start digging yourself a big old hole.
Yes, and this track has a whole lot of banking. It's one of my favorites, actually, because the bottom is nearly flat, the middle starts to bank, and then up against the top, without wall riding, it's highly banked. So there's definitely 3-4 lines easily here at this track. I was starting to play with in the Street Stock, going down the bottom and doing a slider line, and it felt fast, but just couldn't quite make up any pace on the guys ahead of me.
You can see there Jason Menda trying to experiment with a couple of different lines, ends up almost looping it, forces himself to crash into the pit road exit wall. See a lot of guys though right now, Chris, down at the bottom of the track, really just kind of trying to bring in that bottom. Steven Spies still resolutely on the top, but for right now, a lot of guys down, and I'm going to say the bottom 2 lanes or so.
And it sure could be, because these cars have a whole lot more horsepower than we saw in the Dirt Street Stocks earlier tonight. So if you can find that tacky spot and actually have any sort of grip, If you're able to put the power down, you can make that real fast, whether it's the bottom or the top. So it's all going to be about guys who figure out where is the tacky part of the track throughout the night, as well as those who can carry speed when their spikes is slick.
We've got about 3 more seconds here in the practice, so as soon as this gets over, we'll be able to walk you folks at home through the starting order for your 30-lap feature event here. And as well, that's 30 green flag laps. Caution laps don't count.
No, and at the tail end there, I was watching Brandon Proudfoot going all the way up against the wall. So there are going to be multiple lines here tonight, Austin.
Starting on pole for the night's 30-lap feature affair is Brandon Proudfoot in that number 22 car. Starting in second is the Team CDR driver of John Wilson. The 2 Gambler Motorsports drivers are going to come up in row number 2. Aiden Young on the inside, Steven Spies on the outside, rolling off in the 4th position. Rolling off in that 5th spot is going to be the absolute one and only Thomas Vickers in the 23 car. Starting in 6th is Jason Dill. Jason Menda is going to start in 7th, followed by Michael Smith in 8th. Rory Collins in 9th, and Joe Segala is going to round out your 10-car field. Chris, it's prediction time. Who do you have winning tonight?
It is very hard to count out Brandon Proudfoot. I don't care whether he starts on the pole or deep in the pack. He is someone who can find speed no matter where the track is and what he faces to begin the main event. Brandon Proudfoot is where I would put my money.
Well, because you chose the guy starting in on the pole, I'm going to choose the other guy starting on the front row. I'm going to have to put my money here on John Wilson. I feel like this is John's time to really come out in the spotlight, kind of showcase his talent, especially what he's been learning over there at Team CDR. You see Proudfoot goes to the top. He's going to elect to force the Team CDR driver of John Wilson in the 75 down on the bottom.
Interesting to see Proudfoot take the top, but no surprise because he knows where to go and where to be fast.
Yeah, and how about Steven Spies? I feel like he's in the catbird seat right now, especially with Proudfoot choosing the high line. Might give Spies a lot larger of a jump here on the rest of the field, especially being in the same line as the leader. iRacing pace truck goes down pit road. Proudfoot's going to fire off. A little bit of a bobbled start there for John Wilson on the bottom. Steven Spies is going to go around him on the top side. They're going to be side by side as they come off at turn 2. Spies is going to clear himself, and watch John Wilson tries to keep his nose in there. They're almost 3 wide as they come off at turn 4.
Well, that's all about trying to be clean, and that's exactly what we got is Proudfoot up to the top. Speeds to the second. Looks like 23 in the 75, and John Wilson making contact. Aiden Wilson making a move on the inside.
Yeah, right there. It looked like Thomas Vickers shoved the car down to the bottom. The inside of John Wilson just a little bit, slid up the track and forced that 75 car to basically act like a dump truck. Plowed up to the top by about 1.5 lanes. John Wilson back in control of that car. Thomas Vickers and Aiden Young both fighting over that last podium position. This is the battle you see on your screen.
John Wilson's trying to stay on the bottom and trying to make up some room on Aiden Wilson, but it looks like Aiden Wilson thought he was going to make some pressure there on the 23. Can't quite do it. 23 on the outside, making a run there on Steven Spies.
Yeah, Thomas Vickers doing a really good job to stay in that top side. He's been running it just a little bit better than Steven Spies is for right now. I think it's that Vickers gets into the corner a lot better, but Steven Spies is giving up some of that corner, the entry speed, to really maximize his exit speed. I think right now, overall, Vickers is faster on the top, and you can see that really take effect, especially on corner entry. Both these drivers continue to go a little bit faster than Brandon Proudfoot up the field some laps. They trade lap times back and forth. Vickers shoots his car down to the bottom and tries to go for the slider on Steven Spies. Not quite able to make it. Steven Spies wisely covers off that move.
Yeah, without a doubt, Vickers was faster on the top and now faster on the bottom. It looks like he's almost clear. Spies can't quite do it. Stays on the bottom, slides up a little bit, gets in front of Spies, a little bit of contact. He doesn't care. 23 up. Oh, look at that, into second place at this point. He's going to start to pressure himself and run on the outside, hopefully to try and pressure on the leader.
Yeah, how about that battle there between the 55 of Steven Spies and the battle of the 23 car, Thomas Vickers. Absolute masterclass, running side by side with each other for multiple laps. Vickers got it done now. He's applying pressure to the outside of Brandon Proudfoot. Kind of curious to see why Proudfoot hasn't gone up to the top. Proudfoot finally goes up to the top, but Vickers shoots his car down to the bottom, goes for a slider. Proudfoot pulls the over-under, forces the 23 car. Vickers in the wall. Steven Spies almost into the back of the 23 car.
Oh, we had contact there, and that means Vickers and Spies make contact. If you are Vickers, you cannot be happy about that because you knew that you were making a move for the lead. Proudfoot doing all that he can to defend, but Vickers is coming back here on the outside. With 2 laps, within 2 laps, I think Vickers is going to be flying a pressure for the lead.
Yeah, Thomas Vickers continues to close in on the 22 car. Brandon Proudfoot, I think right now Vickers is the fastest car on the track. It just depends. Can Vickers do a good enough job at getting the slider line and then holding off Proudfoot? Oh, contact in the middle of the corner. That's going to force Proudfoot around. Steven Spies is going to make off like a bandit. They continue to wreck. Caution finally flies, but it's a little bit too late for the 2 cars of the 22 of Proudfoot and the 23 car of Thomas Vickers.
No one's happy about that. I've got to tell you, I think Thomas Vickers parked his car knowing that he did not want that caution. Vickers is a very respectful driver. He was not trying to spin Proudfoot at all. That's just one of those things that happens here on dirt. Everybody's upset with how that played out.
Yeah, well, we're going to get a replay here, Chris. Talk me through what's going on if you're the driver of the 23 car. I feel like he just sent it in there. Didn't expect for Proudfoot to be in the center of the corner for as long as he was.
Well, I got to tell you, if you're Vickers at this point, here's how you feel. You kind of want to cry. Like, you get into Proudfoot a little bit. That's one thing. At the same time, if you start to spin that guy around, that's the worst thing that can happen for both of you because neither of you wanted it to play out this way, and now we've got a caution, and Vickers probably has to start at the back. I'm not sure where Proudfoot's going to start, and they were just battling for the lead. That just stinks all around.
Yeah, it's a really poor finish for both those drivers. Luckily, we're just under halfway left in the race. So Steven Spies, Aiden Young on the front row. iRacing pace truck pulls off the track. Steven Spies puts his foot on the loud pedal. Now he's going to see how much challenge he's got from his teammate there from the Gambler Motorsports stable of Aiden Young. Spies on the top side, Aiden Young to the bottom. Both those drivers fighting over this lead. And don't look now, but here comes Jason Dillon, the 09 car. He wants a piece of this.
And this whole track is looking off, which means that the bottom, the top, and the middle are all going to get squirrely. It's all going to be out throttle control. If you are in this race, all you can do is try and hang on and figure out, what do I got to do to make sure I don't spin my rear tires?
Yeah, awesome side-by-side battle here between Steven Spies on the top and Aiden Young on the bottom. Until that last lap, it looked like Aiden Young was faster all the way around the track. Steven Spies was getting a good run off the corner, but Aiden was really maximizing the run there in the middle of the track. But right now, it looks like Steven Spies going to be able to completely clear himself. I'm not sure where Aiden Young had that lightning in the bottom, but I think he just all of a sudden ran out of it.
But Aiden Young is finding the tack down at the bottom. Steven Spies on the outside. We've got the 2 Gambler Motorsports cars racing side by side. At this point, Aiden Young doesn't make contact, but it looks like he's going to have the advantage going down on the bottom.
Yeah, in these last couple laps, Aiden Young's been getting closer and closer. If he just stays down there and stays patient, Chris, I think he's got a real opportunity to do that. Just lost it a little bit in turns 1 and 2. That unfortunately gave up about a half of a car length lead. He was going to have her advantage, rather. Now he's back to just coming up to barely the door of Steven Spies' car with his nose. Really good 1 and 2 there for Aiden Young. Forces Steven Spies back, so now they're dead equal as they go down the front stretch.
Yes, and as they go down the front stretch, Aiden Young down on the bottom. Steven Spies doing all he can not to wall ride. These guys are side by side. All you can do is make sure that you grab the tack where you can, not spin the tires where it's slick. And it looks like Steven Spies has the advantage on the outside.
Yeah, Steven Spies has the advantage for right now, but every couple laps or so, it looks like Aiden Young starts to get faster, and then Spies is faster. This is right by that inversion point of these 2 drivers. Aiden Young finally tries to go for the slider, it looked like. Got a little bit squirrely in the middle of turns 1 and 2. That's going to allow Steven Spies to get back completely to his outside. Now Spies able to run the top.
No slider there from Aiden Young, as he was more respectful than I would have been. They are side by side at this point. I'm hoping that Aiden Young, not quite yet, spinning the tires side by side down the straightaway, being respectful down the middle. If I'm Aiden Young, I throw it hard as I can into turn 3 and 4. He does not. Let's Steven Speeds run him on the outside.
Flag. Looks like Aiden Young's going to get it. Steven Speeds just barely cut up short by 5/1000ths of a second.
Well, thank you for cutting me off there, because I was so excited. If I was Aiden Young, I would have thrown it as hard as I could, like it was my wedding day and I was throwing the bouquet.
A fantastic, thrilling battle to the end there between the two Gambler Motorsports drivers. We're going to take a quick second to go to a commercial break while iRacing timing and scoring does its thing. You see some celebratory donuts there out of Aiden Young. We're going to be right back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Dirt Super Late Model Series presented by Whiteriver LLC. Whiteriver LLC was founded in 2016 and provides global security consulting services to industry, government, and academia. The firm specializes in e-commerce and esports related security strategies to organizations of all sizes. We'd especially like to thank them for their help with bringing this awesome series to you folks at home. Well, Chris, the race just wrapped up. We had a phenomenal battle to the end there between the two Gambler Motorsports drivers. Aiden Young just barely beating out his teammate Steven Spees by 5/1000ths of a second. Jason Dill was the driver to round out the podium in the third position. Brandon Proudfoot spun by Thomas Vickers about halfway through the race. He rallied back to finish in fourth. Thomas Vickers rallied back to round out the top five, Chris.
Yeah, pretty amazing racing here tonight. Coming home in sixth was John Wilson. Seventh was Michael Smith. Eighth, Jason Menda. Ninth was Rory Collins. And rounding out the field in 10th was Joe Segala.
Thanks, Chris. We now have an opportunity to talk to our big winner here tonight, Aiden Young. Aiden, it looked like you were on the back foot for the majority of the final run to the checkered flag, but boy, you held on to it, man. You really rallied back in the last lap and just barely beat Steven. I mean, it was 5/1000ths of a second. That's like blinking for a human being. That was awesome stuff.
Yeah, I don't think I breathed them last 10 laps. It was just fun racing there with Steven, just trying to stay out of his door and just see if I couldn't squeak him out at the end.
Well, you guys did a phenomenal job of not making contact. It looked like at one point you were going to try to slide up and try to do a slide job on him. Was that what you were trying to do, or just trying to really diamond that corner, get a good run off?
Just trying to get a good run off. I knew I probably wouldn't slide up without wrecking each other, so I wasn't going to do that.
10-4, buddy. That was awesome stuff there at the end. Aiden, before I let you go, who do you have to thank for your win, man?
I got to thank Coolray for being on the car. Obviously, they're a big supporter of mine. Citrax Broadcasting for coming on board. Obviously, Gambler Motorsports, and obviously Steven for racing me clean. And obviously, you guys for broadcasting.
Well, Aiden, thank you so much for your time. Congratulations on the win. That was a thrilling battle, man.
Thank you.
That was Aiden Young. He won tonight here in the Dirt Super Late Model Series. And Chris, I think you've caught up with the second place driver, teammate to the winner, Steven Spies.
I believe so. Steven, you got a copy? This is Chris Davis up in the booth.
I got you, Chris.
Hey, Steven. So Aiden Young comes down here with a win at the very end. How do you feel about that?
It's all good. That was so much fun. 5,000ths of a second. It's not really even relevant, but congrats to Aiden. He does a great job running low and putting it down there. And I was just trying to hit marks on top. And, my spotter was kind of every other lap, you're in the lead. You're P2. You're in the lead. You're P2. So, you can't ask for anything more than that. Win, lose, whatever. I don't care if that was races for 20th place, but it was that closely contested. It would have been just as fun.
Yeah, without a doubt, whether it's $100 or $100 million, that had to feel pretty good. Aiden Young running there, you on the inside, he said the same thing, which was he didn't want to rub you, but he felt pretty good coming down there on second. But I just got to ask you, if it was for some money, would you have done things differently?
Probably not. As much as I like to joke around and let Aiden know I'm going to push him around and bully him around and all of those things, you don't crash teammates. So, race clean, that's what it's about. Even if there's money on the line, race clean and do it right.
Well, that's very cool. I know that Cool Ray is one of your sponsors. Are there other people that you'd like to thank here tonight? And if not, definitely give a shout out to Cool Ray.
Yeah, I think I got to give thanks to Vickers and Proudfoot for getting out of the way there. Their little entanglement over in turn 4 that allowed me to jump out there, and then Aiden to follow behind, and so we just got to put that race on. So, unfortunate from them, but like I always say, we don't apologize for wins and podium finishes and stuff like that. You just take the race that's given to you.
Well, without a doubt, Steven, you are very good here in these Dirt Super Late Models. Thanks for showing up with a class act here tonight. That is Steven Spies in the number 55 in the Cool Ray car. Thank you so much. And I believe, Austin, you caught up with that third place mission.
I have. Jason Dill comes home to round out the podium in third place. Jason, it looked like you were kind of just back there, kind of waiting in the weeds like a lion, ready to attack his prey and pounce if the opportunity presented itself. But boy, there's not much you can do when you got two teammates racing each other side by side and not really making contact.
Yeah. Just trying to hit my marks, make sure I stay out of that wall, and I focus on what's behind me, and make sure I keep an eye on them. If they get into each other, I can avoid it.
Certainly. I want to go back to the caution, the only caution we had in the race. You narrowly avoided the incident ahead of you there. You came out, though, the best of the drivers that were right near the epicenter of that wreck. What was going through your mind as soon as you saw that unfold in front of you?
Oh, I need to get out of the way and try to avoid that. Get it, let off the gas, get on the brakes a little bit. Don't slam on them to turn the car sideways so I can maneuver through it.
Certainly. Well, I got to hand it to you, man. You did a phenomenal job taking the race that was given to you, and I know you would have done a lot there if the cars in front of you were single file. But who do you have to thank for your run tonight?
Just all the guys at BRL that put this together, you guys for the awesome broadcast that you do, and Apex, Thomas Vickers, and that's about it.
Awesome. Well, Jason, thank you so much for your time. Congrats on the podium, man.
Thank you.
That was Jason Dill. He's going to come home in third to round out the podium. We'd like to thank all three of our podium finishers for taking the time to talk to us. I'd also like to thank the sponsor for tonight's race and the series, Whiteriver LLC. They were founded in 2016, and they provide global security consulting services to industry, government, and academia. The firm specializes in e-commerce and esports-related security strategies to organizations of all sizes. Check them out if any of that stuff applies to you. For the next races, next week's BRL Dirt Super Late Model Series broadcast is going to be on Friday, March 10th. Same BRL time, same BRL place. They're going to be at Weedsport Speedway at 8:50 p.m. Eastern Time. So tune in next Friday if you don't have anything going on. And the next Virtual Grip Network broadcast is going to be tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern Time as the BRL Late Model Series takes on Hickory Motor Speedway. We're going to give the Chevy Monte Carlo SS its last hurrah before the car is replaced by the new late model stock. It's not going to be a race you want to miss. So seriously, tune in to watch that one. This has been a production of the Virtual Grip Network. On behalf of myself, Austin Belke, my boothmate Chris Davis, and our director Ryan Seneker, as well as everybody else behind the scenes at the Virtual Grip Network, thank you so much for watching and have a good night.